Foot position. The foot position for kickflips is very similar to the ollie. Your back foot should be near the center of the tail of your board so that when you pop, the very tip of the tail hits the ground. The front foot position will be slightly different for everyone, but I recommend putting your front foot where you would comfortably put it for an ollie, and then moving it back slightly so that the toe of your shoe is near the middle of the board. You will also want to angle your front foot so that when you do the ollie-like motion, your foot naturally goes off the side of the board. This foot position might feel strange at first, but you need to be comfortable with your feet in this position before trying the kickflip. If you don't feel stable before you pop, then you will naturally try to get your balance in the air instead of doing the motion of the trick. When you are learning flip tricks, it's best to break them down into pieces so that you can get the rhythm of the trick down. Otherwise, your body will try to do everything at once. The kickflip can be broken down into 3 parts: the pop and pre-flick, the flick, and the hang time and landing. Pop and pre-flick. When you pop, you want to pop straight down with your back foot so that the center of the tail of your board hits the ground. As the tail of your board hits the ground, you want to bend your ankle on your front foot inward while jumping. I call this the pre-flick, and it will set you up for a good flick. The flick. The flick is the most important part of the kickflip. It's really important that you flick the board after you pop, and your wheel should be off the ground before you flick the board. When you flick, you want to flick out with your ankle off the side of the board just before the nose. Flicking with your whole leg will cause you to lose balance and flick the board away from you, making this trick much harder. You want to flick out as your body goes up with the board. You really don't want to flick down because you will cancel the entire trick. If flicking out with your ankle is difficult, spend some time practicing getting the board to flip nicely before trying to land. Just make sure you jump up with the board while you practice, or you will form a really bad habit of putting your feet down. I recommend trying to land on the ground with your feet after the board hits the ground until you're ready to commit to landing this trick. Hang time and landing. To be able to land this trick, you have to be able to stay in the air long enough for the board to flip. Make sure you jump high enough and keep your legs up while the board rotates. If you flick the board the right way, then the back of the board will come up to your back foot on the way down and stop the rotation of the board. You want to pull your front foot back over the board with your leg. Since your back foot should have stopped the rotation of the board, you just have to let gravity pull your body down while you try to land on the bolts. Common mistakes and how to fix them. Now that I've explained how to kickflip, I want to go over the most common mistakes that people have when they're learning this trick. Kinsey actually learned to kickflip while I was making this video, so I'll be using some of the footage of her attempts. The first common mistake people make is flipping the board the wrong way. There are 3 things you want to think about when you are trying to get the board to flip properly: the timing, the direction you are flicking, and flicking with your ankle. Make sure you flick the board after you pop the tail, so there is no resistance keeping the board from flipping. When you flick, you want to flick forward and out with your ankle off the side of the board just before the nose. It's common for people to want to flick down instead of out with their foot, but this really just makes the flick much more difficult. Flicking with your ankle allows your foot to easily grab the grip tape and flick the full kickflip rotation. After you flick, pull your leg up and over the board so that you don't stop the rotation with your foot. The next common problem that people struggle with is keeping their body and board straight. If the board is turning, it's most likely caused by how you were popping the board. Try putting your back foot on the middle of the tail, and when you pop, make sure the tip of the tail of your board is what makes contact with the ground. Another reason the board might be turning is that you are flicking too early. You have to let the board leave the ground before you flick. If your body is turning, you want to keep in mind that rotating your shoulders will cause your hips, feet, and board to follow. Keeping your shoulders lined up with where you want the board to go is a great hack that you can use with almost any trick. Another common issue people have is the board flies in front of them. The reason this is happening is you have too much weight on the back of your board. Since your feet are towards the back of the board, you have to lean forward towards the nose with your upper body to keep your weight centered over the board. It's common for this stance to feel awkward at first, so you want to spend some time to get really comfortable in this position before you start the trick. Getting really comfortable and stable before popping the board is the most important thing that will help you land a kickflip comfortably and with good balance. A really important part of the kickflip that seems to get overlooked is just being able to jump and hover over the trick. It's really common for people to want to learn to kickflip before being able to land good floated ollies. If your problem is that you can't stay in the air long enough, then do some ollies and really try to hover in the air as long as you can while keeping your knees bent until you land. Getting comfortable with floated ollies will make learning the kickflip much easier because you need to be able to hover your body over the board without straightening your legs. Getting your back foot on the board can be a struggle when you're first learning to kickflip. It's actually really important to use your back foot to control the landing of this trick. When you are learning the flick of the kickflip, you should also be using your back foot to catch and stop the flip. You might notice when you are practicing this that the board actually moves over to the side you are flicking a small amount. Keep that in mind when you are trying to land with both feet. Remember, if you have too much weight on the back of the board when you pop, then the board will go in front of you, making it impossible to get your back foot back on the board. You can fix this by leaning your upper body towards the nose of the board when you do the trick. The most common comment I got on my first kickflip tutorial was from people struggling to get their front foot back on the board. Usually when people are first trying to kickflip, they flick off the side of the board and then leave their leg out. What you want to do instead is flick your ankle off the side of the board and pull it back over the board all in one motion. Since your back foot actually catches and stops the rotation for the kickflip, you actually just want to pull your front foot up and above the board and hover it until you land. If you focus on pulling your front knee up to your chest to land and let your front foot and ankle just do the flick, it will help you with this mental block. If you try to catch and stomp the board with your front foot, then you will more than likely stop the kickflip from spinning. It's also important to remember that if you turn your shoulders, it will be really hard to get your front foot back on the board.